Imagine the entire cosmos, every star, every swirling galaxy, every hidden corner of deep space compressed into a single, impossible point, smaller than a grain of sand. No Earth, no Sunday, no horizon to measure distance. Even the concepts of before and after cease to function because time itself has not yet begun to tick. There is no void to expand into, for there is no space to contain it. Everything that is, or ever will be, is locked in a state of crushing, infinite density. It is an ocean of existence squeezed into a needlepoint of nothingness. You look for edges, but there are none. You look for a center, but the center is everywhere. This is not just a place, it is a limit. A wall where the laws of physics stop working and logic fractures under the sheer weight of its own existence. The universe is waiting, silent and absolute, holding the entirety of its potential in a single, suffocating grasp. Nothing moves, nothing changes, yet everything is here. Then, the lock breaks. 13.8 billion years ago, the singularity ceases to be a container and becomes a catalyst. In a fraction of a second, the impossible density erupts. This is the Big Bang, a violent birth that shatters the silence of the void. Within less than 1/1,000,000th of a second, the process of cosmic inflation takes hold. It is not an explosion into space, it is the creation of space itself. The fabric of reality stretches, tearing outward with a velocity that defies the speed of light. Imagine a point smaller than a grain of sand expanding to the size of a galaxy before you can even blink. There is no friction, no resistance, only the raw, unchecked momentum of existence rushing away from its own center. Every coordinate of the universe is pushed to its absolute limit, widening the distance between potential points at a rate that outpaces all physical comprehension. The energy is blinding, the force absolute. In this frantic heartbeat of creation, the foundations of the cosmos are laid across an infinite, growing canvas. The universe is awake, and it is growing faster than it can be measured. The expansion continues, but the intensity changes. As the universe stretches, it loses its initial, searing heat. The blinding energy of the early moments begins to settle, undergoing a radical transformation. Through the cooling, the pure energy of the void condenses, bleeding into the first physical constituents of reality. Quarks emerge from the chaos, dancing in a frantic, hot soup. Electrons and neutrinos flicker into existence, populating the vast, expanding dark. This is not yet a world of stars or planets, but a foundational forge. 3 minutes pass, a blink in cosmic time, yet enough for the fundamental rules to take hold. Quarks latch together, binding by the strong force. Protons and neutrons solidify. They find each other in the cooling expanse, linking up to form the very first nuclei. Hydrogen and helium, the simplest and most vital building blocks, coalesce in the gloom. The universe is no longer just energy, it is becoming substance. A sea of nuclei drifts through the growing space, waiting for the next stage of the long, slow cooling. The foundation is set. The building blocks are ready. For 380,000 years, the universe remained a prisoner of its own heat. It was a thick, glowing fog of ionized plasma. Photons could not move. They crashed into free-roaming electrons like pinballs in a crowded machine, scattering in every direction. The cosmos was a wall of opaque, blinding light. Then, the temperature dropped. The relentless expansion finally allowed the heat to dissipate enough for a fundamental change. Electrons slowed their frantic dance. They felt the pull of the hydrogen and helium nuclei and drifted into orbit, tethering themselves to form stable, neutral atoms. This was the moment of liberation. With the free electrons captured, the fog vanished. The scattering stopped. For the first time, light found a clear path through the void. Photons surged forward in straight lines, racing across the newly transparent expanse. The universe suddenly became visible. This ancient flash, a ghost of the early heat, still permeates the sky today as a faint microwave glow. The era of opacity ended. The era of observation began. The flash of light faded, leaving behind a cold, velvet emptiness. The universe entered a long, silent hibernation. There were no stars to pierce the gloom. There were no galaxies to anchor the void. Only vast, sprawling clouds of hydrogen and helium drifted through the dark, like ghosts in an endless hall. It was a time of profound stillness, a cosmic lull lasting millions of years. Yet, beneath this silence, the universe was not idle. Gravity, the great architect, began its slow, relentless work. It reached across the vast distances, pulling at the diffuse clouds of gas. Particle by particle, atom by atom, the clouds began to clump. They drifted into denser regions, forming pockets of higher pressure within the deep, freezing dark. Every collision added mass. Every movement tightened the grip of gravitational pull. The clouds collapsed in on themselves, growing heavier, denser, and hotter in their hidden centers. This was the secret preparation for the birth of light. The stage was set in the absolute dark, where gravity labored in isolation, carving the foundations for the first fire to ignite in the empty expanse. The pressure became unbearable. Deep within the heart of the collapsing gas clouds, the density soared. The temperature hit millions of degrees. The atoms were no longer drifting, they were colliding with violent, frantic energy. Then, the threshold was crossed. Protons overcame their natural repulsion and smashed together. A single, blinding spark ignited. In that instant, the silence was shattered. The first star roared into existence, a radiant beacon piercing the primordial gloom. It was a forge of creation. Deep in its core, nuclear fusion began to churn, fusing hydrogen into helium and building heavier elements. Carbon and oxygen took shape in the searing heat, forged from the raw, elemental debris of the early universe.
One star became 10. 10 became millions. The darkness retreated, pushed back by the relentless tide of starlight. The universe was no longer a cold, empty void. It was alive with light.
The first galaxies began to take form, swirling in the glow of these ancient giants. The era of the dark was over.
The era of the forge had begun, painting the cosmos in brilliant, searing color.
The brilliance was unsustainable. These massive, ancient giants burned through their fuel with reckless intensity, collapsing under the weight of their own gravity. The core pressure spiked, then failed. In a heartbeat, the balance shifted. The star imploded, falling inward at a fraction of the speed of light, only to bounce off its own dense center. The resulting explosion was a supernova, a shockwave of raw, uncontained power. It tore the star apart, casting its contents into the silent surrounding void. Iron, carbon, oxygen, and gold elements forged in the deepest furnace of the star were blasted outward across light-years of space. This was not merely death. It was a redistribution. The violent shockwave swept through clouds of dust, compressing them, forcing new matter to combine. It enriched the cosmos with the building blocks of complexity. Where there was once only hydrogen, now there was the heavy debris of stellar corpses. These scattered atoms drifted, cooled, and gathered in the wake of the blast. They would eventually coalesce into rocky worlds, liquid oceans, and the foundations of biology. The stars had to die so that the universe could become something more than just light and gas. The legacy of those stars was written in light. For eons, that light traveled across the vast, dark reaches, carrying the history of its origin. Then, one man turned his gaze toward the sky with a new instrument. Edwin Hubble sat in the cold, focused silence of the observatory, tracking the faint, shimmering ghosts of distant galaxies. He measured their spectrum, expecting a static picture of the heavens. Instead, he found a pattern. The light from these galaxies was stretched, shifted toward the red end of the spectrum. The further away a galaxy stood, the more pronounced the shift. It was a physical signal, a cosmic signature of distance and speed. Hubble realized the truth. The galaxies were not just drifting, they were fleeing. They were moving away from one another at incredible velocities. The universe was not a fixed, unchanging stage. It was expanding. Every point in space was moving away from every other point, growing, stretching, and pushing the boundaries of the void. This discovery shattered the old view of a permanent,
steady cosmos. It confirmed that the universe had a beginning and was currently in a state of rapid,
ongoing transformation. The sky was no longer a static map, but a dynamic, unfolding event. Yet, our map remains incomplete. When we calculate the mass of every star, every planet, and every cloud of gas, the numbers fail to hold the galaxies together. There is a hidden weight. We call it dark matter. It exerts a powerful gravitational pull, anchoring the structure of the cosmos, yet it remains invisible to our instruments. It does not reflect, emit, or block light. We only see its influence in the way stars orbit at impossible speeds. If that were not enough, the expansion itself presents a deeper puzzle. Instead of slowing down under the pull of gravity, the universe is accelerating. Something is pushing back, stretching the very fabric of space-time. We call this dark energy. It makes up the vast majority of our reality, yet its core nature stays beyond our reach. We are left staring into a void that is not just empty, but active. Will this expansion continue until the stars burn out and the galaxies drift into absolute isolation? Will the tension eventually snap? We do not know what triggered the singularity, and we do not know the final destination of this drift. The more we observe, the larger the mystery grows. The universe is not just telling us a story. It is challenging us to find the end of the page. Look closely at the hand resting on your knee, the carbon in your cells, the iron pumping through your veins, the calcium in your bones. All of it was forged in the hearts of those ancient, dying stars. When they collapsed and scattered their remains across the void, they were planting the seeds of your existence. You are not a spectator watching the universe from the outside. You are a biological extension of the cosmos itself. As Carl Sagan once observed, we are made of star stuff. The universe spent 13.8 billion years evolving, stretching, and cooling until it produced a mind capable of looking back at the dark and asking where it all began. That question is the heartbeat of our species. We are the way the universe knows itself. This journey from a single, dense point of energy to the complex consciousness sitting here today is our collective history. The mystery of the Big Bang is not a locked door behind us. It is the first chapter of a much larger tale. We are the current page. The story does not end with us. It continues with every question we dare to ask. We are the eyes of the cosmos, finally wide open.